episode. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Let's do it.
Got it.
All right, so now we are recording, and I guess I'll introduce us all. This is Ruben. Ruben's wearing the Puma black and red
Bravo.
sweatshirt right
That
there.
was no.
Serbian red, Cern black.
Oh,
And then just to give a little basic background here, Ruben is 19. He's in Sarasota, Florida, as am I. My name's Luke Gangstad. I'm in Sarasota too. Ruben and I are friends and roommates. And Peter is in Serbia. And you might be asking yourself, what brought these three people together with two guys from Sarasota and Peter in Serbia? And what brought us together here is Ruben's avid interest in Serbia languages, a lot of Eastern European languages, including Serbian, Russian, and Armenian. And he was able to connect with Peter in Serbia through Facebook.
yeah. Just to mention, let's not forget the fact that Peter lived in the U.S. for almost 20 years or even more.
Oh, really? So I'm learning too, because I've just met Peter within the past week or so, and so did Ruben. And after our first introductions, we're realizing that we have a lot in common. We all three of us have a lot in common, and we thought it would be an interesting idea to try and start a podcast channel so we can discuss our overlapping interests. And they cover a wide variety of subjects: as languages, history, hidden wisdom, and knowledge. And we thought for our first call, we just introduce ourselves and talk about, for example, why I got first interested in learning about. Well, for me, I've written a book titled "The Musings of De La Pew." It's on Amazon, and I was going to discuss what first got me interested in those subjects and trying to understand the meaning of life, the nature of existence, the nature of God, man's place in the universe, yada yada yada, ad infinitum, ad nauseum. And Ruben was going to discuss when he was, I think, like 14 or 15 when he first got interested in Serbia and Serbian, and then learning the Serbian language and other Eastern European languages. And then Peter would also discuss when he first got interested in I would say the occult and hidden wisdom and knowledge, which is what Peter and I both have a keen common interest in. And we just go from there. I mean, I'm kind of new to the podcast and the video. I know Ruben has some video. Ruben has his own channel called Ruben's History Show, and Ruben's fantastic on that. I love his videos on that. But we're kind of so that's where we're at right now. So who wants to go first? Peter, Ruben, who would want to go first here?
Well, can I go first?
Absolutely. Peter wants to go first. He volunteered. Yes.
No.
Well, all right. You and I are both from the Middle West. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. You're from New Jersey. City. Yeah, but Luke's from New Jersey as well.
I'm from Pennsylvania. I'm from Southeast.
Okay, you're from Pennsylvania originally, but I guess we've got a lot in common. Well, first of all, we're all the vertebrates, right? We're all vertebrata.
Bipedal.
And nevertheless, we're all carbon-based life forms, right? I'm joking. Okay, this is a talk show. I mean, come on. It has to be serious, but partially it has to contain a certain amount of humor, right? And joking. Like David Letterman did, right? No, he's retired now, but he does the talk shows as well, and on his own privately. Okay, so yeah, okay, so the culture. That's one of the first subjects that we've got in common. I have published a book. This is a perfect opportunity to do our own advertising, right? I published a book called A Culture. So it's not the A Culture written by another guy whose name I can't revive right now, but it's written by me and my partner, Vladimir. I mean, not my partner, I'm married, but my
we
business
got it. Yeah, you
partner-
guys aren't boyfriend.
Yeah, I'm not talking. I'm not
Ovo je
talking
veoma
Norton
smešno.
for me. I'm talking for the
He's not.
audience worldwide around the
Mhm.
planet and the extraterrestrials who are receiving the signal, because they are doing it.
They absolutely are.
Because they're scrutinizing, which is good, and they're doing the constant surveillance, because it's very good too.
And just to give our audience some background, we had to overcome numerous obstacles just to figure out how to use this Zoom application.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
one of us was muted, one of us didn't have the video, and we had to
Yeah,
climb mountains
first it
and
was a
cross
mute. It
deserts
was a
and
mute tube.
yeah,
It was
Yeah,
not
we had a-
YouTube. It was a mute tube.
mute tube. Yeah, so they're
YouTube.
trying to sabotage us from the get go, but we're persistent and we overcame those obstacles, and here we are.
And we're not gonna unveil who that was,
No, they know who they are.
because we didn't know that either.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm not claiming Russian intelligence service, nor CIA, nor
Mhm.
anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Not even Mossad. Nobody. It was just maybe a a case of lack of luck.
So Peter, I
Okay.
guess Peter, my first question, because I want Ruben to follow afterwards, but my first question for you would be, when did you first realize that you had an interest in the occult, hidden wisdom and knowledge, and also languages too? Because I mean, you're a polyglot as well, as is Ruben. Ruben's interested in numerous languages, and he's on his way to becoming fluent in Serb, Russian, and Armenian. And what I guess my question for you is, when did you first get interested in these subjects? Were you a teenager? Were you about Ruben's age, or how old were you when you really got into these fields?
Well, when I was 3 years old, I saw an apparition in my backyard, and I wanted to know a little bit more about its origins. Where did it come from? Which particular realm can it inhabit? What are the sources of it? So I got scared, of course, because I was a child. I was too little. My daughter's 8 now, so I was smaller.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of wanted to figure it out. So I didn't know nothing about that since I entered my teenage years,
Mm-hmm.
the early teenage years, when I started, scarcely and timidly to research the topic. So it, went on, and I went deeper and deeper.
Mm-hmm.
So I started to research it a little bit more thoroughly when I got into my adolescence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I read a whole lot of bunch of books
Mm-hmm.
regarding the topic, So somehow I figured out that I'm becoming a very well connoisseur of the subject, on the occult, and it went wider and deeper over the years and over the decades later. So
did you say
now,
you were 3 years old when you first saw this apparition?
yeah, let's say three or 3.5, let's say,
Sure.
something.
Was it a single event, or was it a recurring event with this apparition?
No, it was a single event.
Mhm.
It was just a single event.
Mhm.
And some psychologists who are materialistically oriented could say that a child's imagination is very vivid
Mhm.
and inclining towards imagining things and compounding, making up, covering up.
Mhm.
But I really saw that apparition, and not the only one. Okay,
Wow.
so it's just about the density and the
Now, when you saw this apparition, did it try to make contact with you, or was it kind of the kind of thing where it just did it make an effort to?
No, it just
you just
stood there.
Oh, okay.
It just stood there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I just reminded myself right now, when I was having my let's say party time with my wife, we entered the marriage almost instantaneously, but we were also, the pre-matrimonial couple, hanging out. So we lived in a red house. I mean, it doesn't have to be necessarily red for the audience. It was red inside. It was paved by the red color. The walls were, and it was an average older house from outside. So okay, I was doing something. Let's say that you can figure out what I was doing, and I couldn't really believe that around 4 or 5 a.m. So my wife is a character witness. She's over here. She remembers that event very, very clearly.
Mhm.
We've got a very distinctive strong sound from the kitchen, and we were, of course, we were kind of scared. What was that about? Where did it come from?
Mhm.
So it was just like somebody was holding a tiny spoon, a metal spoon, and it was hitting the sugar cup or something. It was most closely close to that.
Mhm.
And so who the fuck was the entity or the person we were thinking in our heads? I didn't have any weapon under my cushion in that moment in the whole house.
Mhm.
So we went towards the kitchen. She entered first because females are more brave than males are. Now it's changed because we're over 10 years in marriage. I'm braver now.
Mhm.
Because it's changed. In the meanwhile, so she entered the kitchen and she didn't see nothing, of course, because it was an entity. It was an apparition. It was a poltergeist experience. So she's here. She can witness that. I mean, we're not creating just a show, but I'm saying the situation, how it was. So later on, we figured out that there was a person, an older guy, a dude who died in the house. So we were renting the house. We were renting, and that person died. We figured out several months ago. So probably he was, or I don't know. Yeah, it was he. It wasn't she. He was trying to enter and to do contact with us, I guess. I assume. Okay, but the real thing that I said before is that I was doing something, and I was kind of trying to summon, certain spirits, certain.
Oh yeah. So were you doing meditation and any kind of trance work, or what were you doing in order to summon them?
Invoking.
Oh, just calling them. Yeah. So
kind of conjuring
it to the universe.
So on.
Is it like fair to say like you were speaking it to the universe in a way?
Well, to the particular entities, that I've got the names of in one of the books I read in that moment. So okay, I got one in the house, and I got the second one downloaded from the internet. Okay, so these are the two. Maybe I will recall some more later on, but those are the two events that I really clearly remember right now that can serve as triggers for the deeper research on the topic of the occult. So now we're writing books about that. Yeah, the first book is called Nikola Tesla, Third Reich and the Extraterrestrials. The second one is called A Culture, and the third one is called The Mythologies of Techno World. And those three books are making a series. They're mutually interlinked. They're connected, and they're selling very well on Amazon. We're going to spread the links after the show, and you're going to tell a little bit more, profoundly about your book, because it's awesome as well. Yeah,
I mailed you a copy too, so it's on its way to your home. Amazon shipped it yesterday. Yeah.
You just sent me?
Yes, yesterday.
A copy?
One on Amazon.
Oh, that's great, sir. I'll be delighted to read it.
Mm-hmm. And I've had some similar experiences with the supernatural, or what we would refer to as a supernatural. When I was 8 years old, I had an experience when it was in the summertime, and I had my windows open because it's the summertime and there's a little breeze coming in, and there was a vacant field adjacent to the home I was living, and it was some indeterminate time in the middle of the night, and I remember waking up, and I looked to the window, and I saw that this little gray creature was coming in the window, and I looked at him, and he looked at me, and then I looked at my closet, and I saw another one of these little gray creatures crouching by my closet door. And like I said, it was middle of the night. I was 8 years old, and I remember this moment very distinctly, and I remember having no fear at all. I wasn't even terribly curious, because maybe I'd just been woken up from a dream or I was woken up from my sleep, and I was I don't remember being disoriented, but I just remember having no fear whatsoever. But I can see this event like watching a movie in my mind's eye, in my memory. And I looked to this little gray being crawling in the window. He looked at me. I made eye contact with him, and then I looked to the one crouching by my closet door. He looked at me. We both made eye contact. Then those two little grays, they looked at each other, and the one that was coming in the window backed out, and the one that was over by my closet door ran over to the window, rolled out the window. And then once they were both out of my room, I looked out the window, and I distinctly remember seeing a flying saucer in this vacant field adjacent to my home. And that's the extent of that memory. And I was about 8 years old at the time. And I was probably it was probably around the summer. Yeah, there was a summertime. I was about 8 years old, 9 years old. I don't remember the exact summer. I don't remember exactly how old I was, but I do remember I was right around that age frame. And that was my first and only experience with the Greys or any of the other well-known extraterrestrials. And I didn't really think much of it for quite some time, but I started tying that experience into my research, and the research went into writing my book. And I guess I don't know where I'm really going with this story, only to relate that I have a similar experience to yours, Peter. And also happened when I was a kid too. I mean, yours happened when you were 3, and I'm sure you remember it very well. It sounds like you perhaps you can watch it as if you're watching a movie in your mind's eye. I mean, oftentimes, memories and experiences like that, they have a way of imprinting themselves indelibly in our memory, where we can remember them as I remember that. I have that memory. That memory is as clear in my memory as anything that happened yesterday to me. I can see that. I can relive and re-experience that moment when I was a kid as clearly as I can anything that happened yesterday. And you
just said it happened in the summertime, or
it happened in the summertime. Yeah.
And don't forget to mention that it was summertime, and the living was easy.
Yeah. So Ruben, let's get Ruben into this conversation, Peter. You and I kind of introduced ourselves a little bit, give a little background as to
maybe he's gonna tell us a little bit more about the apparitions.
About the apparition, yeah, or the little Greys too. So Ruben,
not about your school teacher. That doesn't count for an apparition hit.
No. So Ruben, when did you first realize you were interested in Serbia and history and languages? How old were you when you first made that discovery?
I was around maybe I think it was 13 or 14. And I was living in Pennsylvania at the time. Živeo sam u Pensilvaniji kada sam međutim 14 godina. Yeah, I was around that age, around that time, and I was living in Pennsylvania at the time with my mother. And when I was at school, I think it was in middle school, this was back when I was living in Collegeville. This was before we moved to Florida. And so it was interesting because I heard like some kids in my school who were Serbs, and they were speaking the language, and I thought it was very beautiful. And there were other kids like speaking numerous languages like German, Spanish, and so on and so forth. And yeah, and then I was talking to them for some time, and I don't remember their names. And so yeah, I was talking to them, and we were having conversations, and I thought it was interesting. And I said, hey, what language is that? It sounds nice. And then he said Serbian. And then he told me like there was one character in a video game, I think it was Grand Theft Auto. There was a guy named Nigo Bellic who was an Eastern European who was also from Serbia in the video game, and he also speaks Serbian. And I thought it was very nice, and that's why I decided to dedicate myself to learn Serbian language.
Oh, very neat, very nice. And how old are you
That's
now?
awesome.
Again, 19. So you've been studying this for
19.
6 years. This has been a
6,
passion
7.
for 6 or 7 years. Yeah.
6 i 7 godina, da.
Mhm.
Da, 6 i 7 godina, da.
Da.
Ovo je 7. Jel?
Yeah, da.
Yeah. This is your 7th year of the
7,
apprehension,
6 years, yeah.
of the pursuing.
Pri 6 i 7 godina, da.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Odlično, odlično.
Da,
Super.
veoma. Yeah. Šta još? And then I found like there's other programs that teach Serbian, like other people who teach Serbian. And then ever since I started to like reach out to other people who speak Serbian, they provided me lessons and stuff for free. Some of them it was for free, some of them it was not for free. So yeah.
Is there anything you want to share with Peter in Serbian right now?
Imate li sećanja iz ratu Bosna ili Gradovanski u bivšoj Jugoslaviji?
Pa imam sećanja, ali ja nisam bio u tom ratu, nisam, kako da kažem, nisam ni učestvovao, nisam ni bio tada u Bosni dok je rat. Imam znanje dosta o tome zašto je taj rat nastao i koga je vodio i koliko je trajao i kakve su žrtve bile u njemu, ali nisam video taj rat, kako da kažem, nisam bio na licu mesta. Tako da
A šta je se Slobodan Milošević, bivši predsjednik Srbije i Jugoslavije?
Pa dobro, to je bio nesretan raspored, da kažem, personality sa različitim energijama koje se nisu poklapale. Znaš, s jedne strane, a to su sve obaveštajne službe u stvari organizovale. Znaš, tako da je svako od njih bio tu i žrtva i troublemaker. Bio je Alija Izetbegović.
Causing problems.
Da, to je engleska linija. A Sloba, on je bio bankar. On je bio bankar kod Rothschilda u Stateu. Znaš, bavio se ekonomijom, bio je pravnik inače i tako da je on tu završio u politici posle onog govora na Kosovu, znaš, na Gazimestanu 89. I tada je počeo njegov politički uspon i završio se kako se završio. Eto, to je to. Pa onda ovde je bio u Hrvatskoj Tuđman, to je u stvari Tudoman, to je Hazar. To nije Tuđman, to je Tudoman.
Yeah, Albanians were causing problems for Serbs because they were killing Serbs and they were selling their organs. And that's how the war was starting in Kosovo. So
Yeah, that's right. And they wanted to have that territory of Kosovo because of the rough matters that they found over there. That's, the copper supplies for 13 centuries, which is very primitive in its core because after Tesla, there ain't no need for such a primitive way of maintenance, using the rough matters like oil or copper or, bullshit like that. It's over. It's getting over even right now. But somebody needed a territory as well. Okay.
Zašto su sada bombardovanje Jugoslavije? Zašto?
Okay. There are 3 major civilizations and their genes one is Lemurian civilization. The Hyperborean is the second one, and the civilization is of Atlantis is the third one. So each warfare, which maintains over the centuries, over the past millennia, as a logical continuation of those three civilizations, mutual, concurrence or inimical dealings, right? So the Atlanteans, the Atlantis civilization has invaded, Hyperboreans on the Balkans, right? And it was just in another way, it was a warfare against the Orthodox religion, and they see Serbia as a tiny Russia on the Balkans. Okay. Sorry.
Ruski priatei, Russia's friend.
Yeah, and their main goal is to prevent Russia to go out on the coast, to outburst on the coast of a warm sea. I'm not talking about the Black Sea; they are already there. It's already theirs. Yeah, but I'm speaking about the prevention of Russia to go on the open warm sea coast. So and they needed the territory. That's the third reason. And who needed the territory? The Khazars, right? Because after the demolishing and destruction of their state by the Bulgarian Tsar Samuel, they have pledged, they have done an oath, the Khazar oath, to reestablish and to rebuild their state. So they have put their own people, men and women, inside the governments of every possible country, every possible state, like in Hungary, like in Croatia and Germany, everywhere. Yeah, so that's they were the main bombers of the territory of former Yugoslavia. That's a complicated story. But if we have time, I would be glad to share it with you. Why not?
Šta je se Ratka Mladića i Radovana Karadžića? Oni su srpski političar.
Radovan Karadžić je psihijatar po struci. On je završio onaj Tavistock.
Like a doctor, basically.
Da, Tavistock University. Tu se obučavaju obaveštajci, psihijatri koji treba da budu obaveštajci.
So Peter, I have a quick question for you. Would you see, just to make sure I'm kind of on the same page with you? Do you see the ongoing, never-ending conflict in Eastern Europe and the Middle East as being an extension of the conflict between the Lemurians and the Atlanteans, and that a lot of these countries that are at perpetual war with each other are the descendants of the survivors of the catastrophes and disasters that ultimately were the undoing of Lemuria and Atlantis? That these warring countries, particularly in Eastern Europe and the Middle East, are their descendants. Is that fair to say? I'm not, because I'm not sure. I'm not nearly as well versed on this subject as you are. But is that a fair assessment?
In a sense, it does make sense. Yeah. And on the subconscious level, it does. But those and the military corps, who are the better connoisseurs of the whole thing going on, are using that knowledge on the conscious level. So yes, that's the continuation of it, of those warfare maintenance that I just mentioned. And on the other side, it's an attempt of reestablishing the Khazar state on that territory, because that area where Ukraine is located belonged to a much wider territory of the state of Khazars. It was spreading across almost the whole Eastern Europe, you know, way down to the Caucasus Mountains, northern, reef, and thank you, and towards the east, at the Ural Mountains, and the west, it was spreading nearby the Hungarian border up to date, and concluding to the Baltic Sea coast. So it was a pretty large territory, nevertheless. So this is an attempt to reestablish the Khazar state, you know, but there are two states that have to be demolished first, and those are Russia and Iran or Iran, right? Because you cannot be having any Khazar state if you don't destroy Russia and Iranian state, which I consider very hard to do and almost impossible. And it's better to remain this way as it is. You know, it's better not to disturb a big white bear which possesses the nuclear weapon, right? Although as a Tesla researcher, as a connoisseur of Tesla's deed, I know that the nuclear weapon is a children's toy in comparison to what Tesla has done, you know, the death rays and etc. So we, since 1945, since Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we've had 2,800 of the nuclear probes, way from Bikini Atoll, the Bikini Archipelago, to the New Mexico, and so on. And did we destroy ourselves? No. We have the mass destruction weapons, and yet we didn't destroy ourselves. Why? Because obviously there are the civilizations which scrutinize and who do the constant surveillance and who do the prevention of the mutual nuclear mass destruction, which wouldn't bring anything to diminishing. It wouldn't annihilate the life, not to mention the algae, the invertebrates and so on. It would just serve as a pocket of entropy. It would just prevent the development process, the growing process to a certain extent, but it wouldn't do nothing. It would certainly soon perish. Okay, there are the civilizations of Shambhala and Agartha in the interior of the Terra planet, the Earth that we're living on right now. So they are preventing the nuclear annihilation, the outbursts, descending nuclear missiles, and the things like that. Yeah. They are preventing that.
Do you think all these maneuvers?
They are technologically, they are incomparably technically more advanced than this once on the surface.
So Peter, I have a specific question for you. I have a specific question for you. Do you think that all these maneuvers right now going on in the Ukraine are directly related to Zionism? And if they are, I mean, how much of a landmass, or how wide, how large of how much of a land area do they want to take over in that part of the world to create the state of Zionism, or is it just the entire world that's going to fall under the banner of Zionism? How does this relate to Zionism, I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, it's not about overtaking the particular territories, but to do the erasure of certain inhabitants on the certain territories, surfaces, and to, you know, to destroy the borders between the countries in order to reestablish the state of Khazars on the previous territories. That's the previous plan, what they meant to do originally, and what they still stick to. And I don't bring the Zionism into any closer relation with the Khazars, because Khazars originally are a Turkic tribe who came from the Central Asia long ago, like any other Turkic tribe. So, and they have established their state in Europe, as I said, but they have acquired the Judaism, you know, the Moses religion, the religion of the Jews, in order to survive, in order to be able to biologically thrive and survive. But they were not the Jews. They're Turks originally. And, you know, like, okay, I'm not saying nothing. They're just defending their own right to exist and to reestablish their state. So at the tables where they do the assembly, you know, where they sit down in order to arrange the things, they said before this COVID outburst, which is over, of course, you know, they said, okay, we don't necessarily have to reestablish and regain our state where it previously stood, but instead we can conquer the entire planet, which is tiny enough, by putting our you know, putting our own agenda, you know, in every corner of it, which also isn't possible because you cannot control literally everything, right? You know, sooner or later, you know, the order that you have established is gonna get weaker.
Well, but it's much easier to control the entire planet than when you have control of all the major media outlets. I mean, you only have to control maybe a handful of puppets at the very top, and then everything else is that residual effect. I mean, it all pretty much bleeds out to the rest of the global population. I mean, if you could control the main centers of the dissemination of information, those being, you know, CNN, Fox News, the BBC, and whoever else, I mean, and whatever, and the other major news media outlets in Australia and Europe and Canada and everywhere else. I mean, you just have to control the national media outlets. If you can control them, you can control the world. You can control the perception of the world. So there, I mean, there aren't that many people that you need to control in order to directly control, to pull the strings of, to control the world, to control the perception of the 99% of the world.
Hang on.
Oh yeah, but there is the white government from the shadow. I mean, I'm speaking about those ones who don't work as the factors of entropy, but who for the development of the civilization, both technological and the development of consciousness, the evolution.
One thing, Peter, I don't mean to interrupt you, Peter, but we're down to 1 minute, less than 1 minute on this one. So this is I think this would be a great place to kind of, we'll wrap it up here because we're down to 1 minute, and then we'll pick this up.
I was going to ask another question.
To interrupt.
Because we have 1 minute left on. We have 1 minute left on this